I would say. So these are people that feel they don't belong to the society. But what we offer is that verification that they are part of the society. What we offer is that verification that they can contribute to the society and they do have a future in the society. Actually, the motto of our organization is changing the future today, which is about them children realizing that they too have a part in the future and they can contribute to it.
Right. This organization was formed in 2018, last year. What inspired the formation of this organization? What are the key issues that you looked at, or that you pick and say, we're going to focus on these issues?
Well, I would say personal experience. As an individual, I realized that personally, there are some things that I wished to have as a child that I could not have because maybe of the financial environment of the country. And I asked myself, how many children are going through the same consequences and even worse? So children need that platform where they can be heard, need that platform where they can be empowered so that they can positively contribute to society. So this was really the idea behind the formation of the organization.
So where are you guys programming from? Where are you based? What are some of the programs that you do?
Okay, we're locally based here in Bulawayo, and currently we're working from Jaros Chiri Center, where one of our board members is operating a bakery store and is actually offering his space to work from there. We're targeting children in Bulawayo, particularly in Ziligazi, in town, and anywhere else in locations, especially locations, because that's where you find most of the vulnerable children. Not to say that there are no vulnerable children in low density suburbs, but there are more vulnerable children in our locations. So we're operating from this space.
Right, speaking of vulnerable children, if we're going to look at children living and working in the streets in Bulawayo, these children are exposed to many things. They don't have blankets, they don't have jerseys. Most of them don't go to school. Like, what are you guys doing in terms of looking at the right to education to every child? What are you guys doing in terms of targeting those children living and working in the streets of Bulawayo?
Well, our primary focus as an organization is to let people know that there are children like this. You know, some people do know that we have children in the streets, but they just say, okay, we have children in the streets. But they don't really know what to do about it. So our primary focus is to spread the information, to talk about these issues, to say, children in the streets, who do they really belong to? Don't they belong to us? Are we not the community that should take care of them? Or should we just look at them and say, well, these are just street urchins, children that are not part of the community? So we talk about these issues. And then we also interact with other organizations that can probably work with these children to offer what they can offer. So our main idea is to advocate to organizations, to companies, to individuals, to say, we have these children that need our help. What can we do? What really is the problem? We get down to the ground to find out what really are the issues that these children are facing. You realize that not every child in the streets is actually in the streets because they have nowhere else to go. But maybe because of abuse at home or other reasons that force them out of the home to go to the streets. So we need to then address those issues and not address them as if children are a homogeneous group, as if they are just one size fits all. But we need to look at the issues of each child differently. At the same time, getting to address their needs and then have a future.
Speaking of these vulnerable children, like most of the time we say no one cares about them. But what are some of those issues, even their families don't care about them, what are some of those issues that made them to leave their homes, to be found in the streets? Some are working in the streets, some are living there. What are some of these issues that are talking about what they force them to leave their homes?
Okay, I've got a case in point which I know, which I was following up. There's a child that at one time when I was teaching, I came across. He had challenges with abuse at home, as in he was being beaten up at home. So it was no longer comfortable to stay within that setup. So he felt he should just move out of the home. A good thing is there are other relatives that were also thinking this child needs to be assisted because the child needed counseling and needed a safer place to stay. So at the end of the day, the child was then assisted and then went to a relative that would take care of them. So you realize that these are some of the cases. But there are some children who genuinely leave home because they feel that the home is just too much for them. Maybe the rules are just too much for them. And maybe the family is not always there to assist them, to help them realize that they're actually being groomed to become better people in society. So they then leave because they don't get that extra care or that extra counseling or that extra eye to see what issues they really have. Sometimes our parents get too busy, with work, trying to take care of us to an extent that they forget to actually be there for us. So at the end of the day, we end up living as children thinking that we're not cared for, when the opposite is actually true. So there are different cases and different reasons why children leave. But the primary idea is every child deserves a safe place to stay in, and every child deserves a safe environment to grow and learn, and not to work in the streets, because the truth is they're not going to be better people by living in the streets.
So yes, you're also trying to engage the families and trying to find out the root causes why they leave their homes to live and work in the streets. Also, sometimes when tackling problem, then to look at the root causes. You've also engaged the families, to talk of counseling, talk of problems that the families face in terms of raising this child.
In this case in point, yes, because I was personally close to the family. But you realize that there are different cases, like I said. Sometimes you may not even get that opportunity to get to the family because the family is not willing to actually open up and talk to you. So then you try other ways to then assist the child. But at the end of the day, it is the best interest of the child that should be considered.
Earlier on, you spoke of the issue of engaging the communities and stakeholders in helping the orphans and vulnerable children living in the streets. What else is the response from the community and other stakeholders that you work with?
Well, I would say people don't really yet understand what we're trying to say, or what we're trying to do, or who we really are as an organization. I'll give you a case in point. We actually launched our organization on the 20th of November last year. We invited friends and family, we invited the civil society, we even invited companies, the private sector. And the turnout was low in that launch, with friends and family come because they're friends and family. But the other people that don't really know us are waiting to see maybe some work that we have done. They're waiting to see something big that we have done for us, for them maybe to come and join. And that's the challenge I think many non-governmental organizations have, because donors or just the general public waits to see something big that you have done. They don't just get into an idea because it's a good idea. They would want to see something that you have done, and that becomes a setback to an organization, because we actually depend on the community to move. We depend on the private sector to move. So we need each other in this group. But those that have interacted with us are actually loving the idea. What they're loving about the idea particularly is our focus also on technology. That we want children to have access to technology, because we're living in a technological world. We're now in a digital society. So our children at primary school level need to have that access, need to have that knowledge about technology. So they do support the idea, and they wish this idea would grow to something big. But perhaps for now, we're just taking those baby steps to get there and doing what we can in our capacity.
Right. Speaking of the right to education, every child has the right to education. But speaking of looking at orphans and other vulnerable children, they don't get access to education because they have birth certificates. What are you doing as an organization to help them get birth certificates, and how have you been engaging the Ministry of Education, how have you been engaging the Home Affairs Department, in terms of giving the children living in birth certificates?
Well, I would say this is an area that we have not really put our hands into. We know there's an issue that we need to look into, but we usually refer children to organizations that are already doing it. The reason being that as an organization, we can only do that much, but we cannot really do everything. So we are part of a coalition called ZNCWC, Zimbabwe Network for the Zimbabwe National Child Welfare Coalition, ZNCWC. This coalition basically looks into children's issues. So when we meet in a case that focuses on birth certificates, we just refer to that so that we can have an organization that focuses specifically on birth certificates. We realize that because we are still new and we're still taking those baby steps, we may not really have that impact with the Ministry of Registration and things like that. So we were just focusing on referring those children so that at the end of the day they can then get that access to education.
Right. Also in Dabase Health, there are also girls found living and working in the streets. A lot of access to sanitary pads because they're expensive. I got a mind to buy those sanitary pads. How have you been trying to reach out to those children in terms of access to sanitary pads?
This is almost similar to your previous question. Access to sanitary pads needs money.
Yeah.
So we have organizations that actually do that, access to sanitary pads, and that are focusing on the girl child specifically. We are focusing on every child, and we are focusing on child advocates for their rights. So we talk about the need to access to health and the need to access to sanitary pads. We actually write about these things in our own vernacular language. There's the local paper Umtunya where I've also been given a platform to write about children's rights. So I've been writing a column called Isigaba Sabantwana, where I actually talk about child's need to access to health and need to access to sanitary pads. But for now, all we've been doing is talk about this so that everyone is aware that there is a need. And then when someone maybe approaches us to say, we've seen these children that have this need, what can we do about it? We can then do collaborations with other organizations because we believe in working together with other organizations and not claiming that we can do everything on our own. Because at the end of the day, it's about having partnership for the sustainability of whatever goals that we have. So we partner with others in that way.
So take us through a session whereby you're teaching the orphans and vulnerable children about maybe education, right to education, right to information technology, where you spoke about technology. What are some of the issues that you talk about in terms of the sessions, meeting them? How long do you meet? Monthly, weekly?
Okay, we define ourselves as a mobile school, meaning to say we don't have a specific place where we just go and meet orphans and vulnerable children, but we go to where orphans and vulnerable children are. Take for instance a children's home. We visit a children's home and we talk in general about children's rights and responsibilities. We believe also that in as much as children have rights, they also have responsibilities. So it's a 50-50 thing. It's not something that you deserve this, you deserve that, but what are you doing about what you deserve? So what is your responsibility as a child? So in a situation where probably we're talking about education, we say as a child you have a right to education. You have a right to access education. We also have a responsibility to take education seriously, to do your homework, to learn, to participate. So at the end of the day, when you don't participate, you're infringing your own right as a child. So then we try and engage to say, what then are the challenges to that right? Then we can have children saying no access to school fees. And then we can then start advocating that children must get access to school. You know, there must be ways in which school fees can be paid. You realize that this, as NGOs in general, has been a success with the government to an extent that today no child can be sent away from school for not having school fees. It's not the problem of the child that school fees is not paid. So a child must go to school, whether school fees is paid or not. But again, it then becomes the responsibility of the parent or guardian to make sure that school fees is paid. So that's how we then make sure that we then advocate for those rights.
Right, Dala will talk when I take a community as a child, but now community like, what do you think the community is missing in terms of supporting or reaching out to the orphans and vulnerable children?
Well, it's this thing that we call education. When education came first, it taught us that there's this thing called a nuclear family. It's about me and my children. And when you come to my family, you're a visitor, you're a foreigner, you're not part of us. Back in the day, we used to live as a community, as a global village. Each person was related to everyone. Not necessarily in the sense that we are actually blood related, but everyone was a brother, everyone was a father. Every parent would discipline, for example, someone else's child and tell them, don't do this, or do that, or just send them to fetch water for them. But now we can't do that because there's this thing that we call education, which I think is the wrong definition of education, where we just live on our own and do our own things. But the idea now, which we're trying to bring to society, is that yes, it takes a community to raise a child, and there's no better way of doing it. We all have the responsibility as citizens to make sure that our children give us the future. Imagine if you don't take care of your child, and that same person even taken care of is supposed to teach future children. What is that person going to do? Imagine if you don't take care of your neighbor's child, and your neighbor's child becomes the president next generation. What kind of president is your neighbor's child going to be without proper education? So the idea is, let's give our children education so that we can have a better future for ourselves and for our children.
In everything, there's a challenge that people face. As an organization, what are some of the key challenges that we faced, and how can someone reach out to you guys to support your work?
Well, our main challenge has been visibility. That we do have all these programs that we're doing, thinking of doing, planning to do, but very few actually know about who we are and what we do. So actually thank Site for this opportunity, because now people can get to know that there's an organization like this that does that. And then whenever we do our work, those that have met us, those that have interacted with us, they do support us. And they think we should do better. We can improve here and there. And sometimes the other challenge that we can have is basically with entry to the community, because entry to the community means interacting with community leaders. So community leaders may not really understand you if they've never heard about you before, and that there's actually an organization like this that's actually genuine, that's doing these things. Because many people come and claim that we are doing this for children, when they're actually doing it for their own benefit. So to be trusted as an organization becomes a challenge if you have not been seen. So I think this is a good opportunity to then let the community know that we are here and we want to work with you, not for you, but with you. That's the whole idea.
So as the year goes by, what some of the programs that can expect from you guys? What are you guys working on now? What can we expect in the future?
Well, in line with getting relevance in the community, there is a program coming up just after Trade Fair in May, where we want to engage the community, young people, on entrepreneurship. We believe that it takes a community to raise a child, but can the community positively contribute to the growth of children without money? So we're now looking into entrepreneurship training for young people so that they can be able to contribute as well to children. Why young people in particular? Because our adults, yes, have played their role, they've done something. And our young people who will be leaders in the near future are still crying about unemployment, they are crying about inability to get access to any form of finance. And these are the people that we think can be able to take care of our children. So they need entrepreneurship skills that will then incapacitate them to take care of our children.
So which some of the targeted communities that we're working on? Which communities are you working on? Or never target in terms of different communities, which ones? For
now, our primary target is Ziligazi community. We're looking at Ziligazi, Baba Fields, Kuboenja, Makokova, Thonguru, those areas. Because we realize that in that particular area, there's actually a number of young people, a number of children that are vulnerable. Not to say other communities don't have vulnerable children, but we need to start somewhere. So this is where we're starting.
Right. So if someone wants to get in touch with you guys and work with you guys, how can they get hold of you? Where you're based, your phone numbers, your Facebook and Twitter pages?
Okay. On Facebook, you look for OVC's OVC. OVC, small letter S, OVC, which is an abbreviation for the name of our organization. And then on Twitter, you also look for OVC's OVC. You can get in touch with us. For now, you can get to myself directly, which is 0775 523 605. And you can then get more information about who we are, what we do, and where we're working from. Or you can just decide to visit us at Gerald City Center, look for the bakery guy. And
so your parting words, what can you say to the viewers at home about your organization, about your future plans? Any parting words?
Well, to you, because I believe there's one person right now who's interested in this program, I would say to you, support us, grow with us, work with us. But above all, even if you don't work with us directly, do something for the child. Do something that is going to benefit a child. And whenever you do that, something good for the child, you are investing in the future. You are creating a better future today.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Till next time, this has been Know Your Right. Do follow them on Twitter at OVCs, right?
Yes.
At OVC. Do follow me on Twitter at The Real Prefect. Do follow us on Twitter at SideZW, #Asake. Till next time, was Amalung and Know Your Right.